Hello, Ohio gozaimasu. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday service for May 31st. It's the last service of May. I can't believe that June is already here. Next month, we've got our Bon Dance practice coming up, and just a month after that is a Bon Dance. I appreciate everybody's help with helping get that together. We'll begin our service today with 1 minute of silent meditation. If you'll please put your hands together, and I'll try to remember how to count. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, if you'll please turn to page 20 in your red service books, we're going to have chanting of Shoshinge, Double Hosa. And you can chant along with us or just read along with the translation from page 20, 20ページ、赤本の20ページから小信芸を言行します。
이사이는 마드본드니 원치려라의 그세상 문건도라의 소개사 세인요 능가리 겐이라 그성탄맨두 자겐교만 나드시소 진여주지진기남 간주시남주가시 인도 사이렌시 영계 주라리시 시모서 델타쇼 세쇼기 영여라의 홍제로기 사가여라의 여가센 이슈공여 강택지주일주달지슈노세 신노달가부무겐 센제갈조무조 조강기지 조왕가그겐지남녀적으로그 신묘이묘 시노라그 오늘미다 그홍당 이는 서그지 유인조 이녀조 소녀라이코 겐징모사소롱세 이명흑의 고려라이 예수나라 겐신지 어센모조달세간 거유홍남기에고 이로금조쇼이시 기유그덕드라이고 아이비냐그유라이 예수 어대시행계 소세다이 서대쇼신묘 호쇼시 일본노리겐 김스지쇼지용기용계 온지용남교den시 요고란쇼도사라이 삼소드시 주요요 언쇼생교기량호 겐징모사lum치게 오도인가 겐세강 오겐에고유나리기 저조시인유신진 왕생원그 신진호 쇼지쇼지 수내한 위시무려공여도 조의시로 달그대 노샤대쇼도난쇼 유명교도 하스유 왕생지리 행건슈 엠망덕도 하생쇼 상그상식계영도 조마호대도기 이쇼도 하드시그세이 양묘다이쇼요하 엔도리여 그쇼이 오아이요상요야트아그 동영영도케이네 가인요홍남가이지라이 요자소지동모시 도기지엔소오고 요이가이토라드산미 소쿠쇼모쇼시노라구 겐시고달이지갈교 겐피안묘 강이사이 센소실시 한센지 오겔리도쇼렌유 고드주 아프리뉴이쇼드 라야크사이 세슈주 원도쇼겐스리그게 알리무겐조소다 본지겐드며드며 엔민젠마드곤드니 센슈표쇼고에슈 센자크홍강그완세 엔라이쇼지겐게 엔지기조기쇼시 소리유전조드기라 그기치신지노니 유효다이시시고 조사연행 노그덕그하그 노스지시그노시
Okay, if you'll please turn to page 17 in the red service book. We're going to recite Vandana, Ti-Sarana, and we'll follow that with the three treasures on page 18 on the next page. So we'll be standing for this part. So I'll recite the first part, and then you guys can come in on the Buddham Sararam Gacchami. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Buddham saranam gacchami Dhammam saranam gacchami Sangham saranam gacchami Gacchami. Difficult is it to receive life in human form. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma. Now we hear it. If we do not receive awakening in the present life, then in what life can we hope to receive it? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together as one, begin on the great path of enlightenment, holding in our hearts the supreme aspiration. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together as one, enter the storehouse of the Dharma and attain true wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together as one, uniting in harmony, strive to live for the enlightenment of all beings. The incomparable, deep, and profound Dharma is difficult to encounter even through countless ages of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us endeavor to thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Buddha Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, you folks may be seated. Well, once again, I'd like to thank you folks so much for coming out. I know it's kind of starting to get a little warm here in Honolulu. Of course, it's warm all the time, but as we're getting closer to the summertime, we'll want to turn the fans up a little bit, and maybe we should think about getting air conditioning someday. But thank you very much for bearing with the heat and bearing with me. My name is Reverend Steve, and today Rimban Inouye is in Hilo, and Reverend Okumura is in Kaneohe, so you folks are stuck with me. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about, last week I went over to the local Dharma gathering in Pololo. So throughout the year, we ministers go to different temples to talk to the community and participate in their discussions. And so Pololo has a very different Sunday service compared to ours. They don't do Shoshinge, they do Sansege or Tanbutsuge. They do a very short chanting of the sutras, and then they go into a group discussion. So Fujimori Sensei structured it as around 3 questions, kind of like 3 existential questions about our lives, and that ties into their study of the larger sutra. So when I went over there last week, he asked me to come up with these 3 questions. So one of the questions that I wanted to talk about is this idea of what is freedom? Not like a political stars and stripes kind of freedom, but the week before I had gone to Pololo, I got really sick, got some really bad food poisoning. So I was in bed for like 3 days straight. And I had this great feeling of not being kind of cooped up. You're stuck in bed, you're just reading your phone, you're just looking at the news. And so you're not able to get out and do shopping. You're not able to go to a restaurant. You're not even able to, go into work. It's a really tough situation. But as I was taking medicine, as I was getting some rest, as I was feeling better, as I was able to, hobble around the apartment and get around a little bit more, I started having this feeling of, hey, this is freedom. This stuff that I usually was able to do, like just going to Times Market or going to Waikiki for udon or something like that. Something that for this short period of time I was totally unable to do. Suddenly, the world was opening up to me. And I had this moment, I was feeling better. I was walking outside, the sun was setting, there was a wonderful breeze going by. I thought, wow, this is real freedom. I could do anything. And of course, that's not quite true. I can't get on a plane and go to Europe or to Japan or something just tonight. But the amount of things that we're able to do as human beings, it puts it into perspective when illness or other things prevent us from being able to do it. And so I've been going back and studying the works of Kiyozawa Manshi, or Manshi Kiyozawa. He was a reverend who was one of the most important thinkers in the Higashi Honganji tradition. He was somebody who went back and during the Meiji period, he was looking at European philosophy. He was looking at the Greeks. He was looking at the Buddhist agamas, like some of the oldest writings or some of the oldest scriptures of Buddhism. And he was looking at the Tanisho. And he was looking and interpreting Buddhism in a way that he felt was more authentic to what Shinran was trying to teach. And so it's because of him that Shin Buddhism, our focus was turned from Buddhism as this thing for the ancestors, this thing for the afterlife, and making it a way to look at our own lives, to examine ourselves, and to try to entrust in this original vow of the Amida Buddha, this power beyond the self. And so, these different traditions, these different new ways of thought that were coming into Japan for the first time and combining with Shin Buddhist thought was totally transforming things. So it's a fascinating period in Buddhist history, and I've been trying to learn a little bit more about it. So he writes about freedom in his December Fan essay. He says that the greatest hindrance to independence and freedom is materialistic concerns, particularly worries about physical welfare. What should we do? The answer is that materialistic concerns should be regarded as external to our true being. We should be ready to abandon material things, including our physical well-being, at any time. An independent person should stand always on the precipice between life and death. From the outset, he should be prepared to face death, even death by violence or starvation. It seems like a pretty extreme philosophy, but what Manshi Kyozawa was really interested in was sort of the limits of human ability, the limits of your jiriki, your self-power. And so he emphasized that the most important thing was to find a deep entrusting in the compassionate workings of the infinite world represented by Amida Buddha. We live in a limited world. We, go to our jobs, we drive a car, we go to the supermarket in a limited world. All of this is impermanent. Our limitations of, our where we were born, what era we were born in, our circumstances, it limits what we're able to do. That's not a true freedom, because we've got all these visible and invisible limitations on what we can do. I can't go to Japan right now because that's a lot of money, especially more now. But by colliding and being aware of these limitations on what we're able to do, on our own abilities, our own circumstances, that is when we realize how much is outside of our control. And it's when we come to this realization that we let ourselves be grasped, we let ourselves be embraced by what we call the power beyond the self, by the original vow, by the Nembutsu, by this power that Amida Buddha represents, this infinite world that is, just underneath the surface of what we can see. And we allow it to carry us along. We're still exercising our own thoughts and actions and choices, but we're able to better understand what things we can control and what things we can't. That's what Manshi Kyozawa was talking about, trying to find in our own lives. He said, if we depend on all this stuff that is outside of ourselves, these things that we're totally unable to control for our own peace, happiness, and freedom, we're never going to really be free. If you're only thinking about that promotion, or you're only thinking about getting that new car, or, having this, that, and the other thing, you're never going to be happy, because there's always going to be something that you're not able to control. So much of our suffering comes from all these things that are outside of what we can affect. Things like, a car accident or an illness in the family, things that there's all these causes and conditions. There's all these things working behind the scenes, all these millions of factors that are outside of our control that we think we have control over in our lives, but in reality, we don't. But when we see these limits, when we realize what things we're able to change in our own lives and what things we're not, we are vibrating on the same frequency as Amida Buddha. We're entrusting ourselves in the flow of this power beyond the self. Someone living in tune with Amida's compassion vow is able to live in difficult or easy situations. What Kiyosawa talks about of, an independent person should always stand on the precipice between life and death, and that, a person who has this deep entrusting in the teachings, in the Buddha Dharma, if you make $1 million in Vegas, you're going to be okay. But if you lose money in Vegas too, you're also going to be okay. You realize that those things are external to your own peace of mind, your own happiness. That the real thing is, your own mind, the stuff that you can affect. And that somebody living in that compassion vow is able to, experience difficulties, just like Manshi Kiyosawa did in his life. He lost family members. He, died very young of disease. He had a very difficult life, but he was able to live with this guiding philosophy, this guiding trust in the teachings. And so, he believed that it was important to be aware of these limitations in our life, to be aware of the obstacles and frustrations and friction in our life. And that it was important to experience difficulties like feeling hungry or feeling thirsty. When we're hungry, food tastes more delicious. When we're thirsty, water is all the more delicious because, just like my experience of when I was sick, you realize what things you've been taking for granted. And that if we lived in a world where we had no friction, if we had no obstacles, that's part of modern life, is that we're always trying to reduce the number of obstacles in our life. We're always trying to make life as smooth as we can. It's only natural. That's part of the human desire to, you don't want to have a conflict with your boss, or, you don't want to have a lot of traffic on the way to work. There's all these different things that we try to make as smooth as humanly possible. But that's not true freedom. True freedom is being able to deal with life as it comes in the ups and downs, to realize that the obstacles that we're hitting into are the world trying to teach us something. Reverend Kiyosawa's asceticism would lead to his early death, but his focus on the obstacles and limits of our own lives being important resonates so much with us today. So much of this AI, generative AI, people want to make movies, they want to make pictures, they want to do all this stuff without the messy part of creation. They don't want to take the time to learn how to draw and to do research on, movies and artwork and things to inspire them. They want to type some words into a computer and have it pop out immediately. Even me using like a DeepL for translation is me trying to make things more smooth. I should really be trying to look words up in the dictionary and learn better Japanese. The world that we live in is one of limitations and friction. That's just part of how it works. But we find freedom in embracing that difficulty. The people around us are unpredictable. They work, according to their own way of doing things. And sure, we could try to make the world less frictionless by avoiding them, or, trying to stay away from other people. But true freedom comes in embracing that world of messy others, of messy circumstances. And that when we encounter these obstacles, when we encounter these difficulties, how much more sweet is it when we learn how to work with somebody who causes frustration before, when we learn how to get to work in a way that is a little smoother, when we are reading the teachings, we're reading these books, and suddenly you have your eureka moment of, oh, I get that now. Life is always providing us with these frictions that, imagine you're a knife. If you didn't have any friction, you'd never become sharp. So in our own lives, we can't be afraid of, the rough workings of the world. That's just how it is. And I think Manshikyu is always trying to tell us that if we can roll with the punches, if we can make our way in the world, even with all the bumps in the road, that is where happiness, that is where freedom comes, as we realize all the things we don't have control over, like our status in life, our wealth, our health. The things we can control are the ways that we look at the world, our attitude, our study, our opinions. If we focus on those things, we can be a lot happier in our day-to-day. We can find a real sense of freedom, hopefully without all the food poisoning to have to deal with. So I'd like to thank you folks so much for listening today. If you folks have any questions about the teachings or anything I talked about, please feel free to ask. And hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Okay, so we've got some things coming up. Even at the end of the month, we're pretty much done for May. And thank you so much for everybody who supported us during our events like a movie night and things like that. On the 3rd of Wednesday, 5:30 p.m., we're having our karaoke night. This is open to everybody. If you love to sing, all you have to do is to give us a song, and we'll look it up on YouTube. On Sunday the 7th, we're going to have our Shotsuki Memorial Service. Rinban Inoue is going to be doing the talk for that. And immediately following that, at 11:30, it's going to be our photography club. So if you're interested in taking pictures, bring a thumb drive or print out some pictures and bring it in, and we'll share what we've been photographing the past month with everybody. On the 9th, we have ukulele band practice at 3 p.m. And on the 13th, on Saturday, we've got Shoshinge for beginners class, facilitated by Rinban Inoue. And on the 14th at 10 a.m., we've got our local Dharma gathering with special guest, Reverend Sawada from our Hilo Temple. Are there any other announcements? Anything else? Okay, if you'll please turn to page 112 in your red service book, Yaku Juni page de. We're going to have Ondokusan, and we'll sing along with the music. So page 112 in your red service book. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for coming today. We're going to have refreshments across the parking lot in our social hall. Please join us. We've got chili rice with some hot dogs for lunch. It's going to be very delicious. So we'll see you across the way. And you folks have a wonderful week and have a wonderful rest of May.